call this meeting of October 6, 2020 to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Here.
Supervisor Christy?
Here.
Supervisor Miller?
Here.
Supervisor Villegas?
Here.
Chairman Valadez?
Present.
Let the record reflect that all members are present. Supervisors Christy and Miller are participating remotely.
All right, today's invocation will be offered by Pastor Demetrius Miles from Tucson Church International, and it will be immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Villegas. Everyone, please stand. Pastor.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, how we bless you and honor you and thank you for your goodness and your kindness toward us. Father, we thank you for our city. Thank you for our citizens. We thank you for our county. And we thank you for the state of Arizona. I especially, Lord, thank you for our government and those that are leading to serve the people. And I pray especially for the Board of Supervisors this morning, that you would grant them wisdom and that you would give them focus as they navigate through the myriad of dynamics in leading this county. And Lord, we bless you and we honor you and we thank you. We ask this now in the strong, mighty, and powerful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. There's
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christy.
I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege, please.
Please proceed.
At the call to the audience during the September 15th Board of Supervisors meeting, a troubling, embarrassing, and unnecessary incident needlessly occurred. A citizen and business owner of Pima County, Kelly Walker, was forcibly ejected and subsequently arrested for simply repeating others' comments and for not being made aware of Board of Supervisors meeting protocol. Chairman Valadez clearly mishandled the situation. No advanced ground rules were explained, and the speaker, Kelly Walker, was inexperienced and blindsided by the chairman's actions. This all could have been avoided if Chairman Valadez had exhibited some patience, diplomacy, and practical sense. I am asking now that Chairman Valadez, through this board, to direct the sheriff that all charges be dropped against Mr. Walker, and that on behalf of Pima County and the Pima County Board of Supervisors, that Chairman Valadez issue an apology to Mr. Walker over this unfortunate event that unnecessarily occurred here on September 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Christie. All right, we have one change to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask everyone to take a moment today to pray for our president who is ill with the coronavirus. And I think it's very important that we all come together and pray and hope that he gets well soon. And I just wanted to ask people to do that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. All right, we have one change to the agenda. It is regular agenda, page number 6, item number 27, Development Services Unfinished Business. The item requires a supermajority vote by the Board of Supervisors. So that's, without objection, that will be the only change to the agenda. And we have a presentation. Supervisor Bronson, would you care to move the item?
I will move the item.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Supervisor Bronson.
Thank you. And if both of you want to come on up, and I think what's our protocol these days? Are we going down? Or
No, we're just,
yeah, if you want to come up to the, yes, and then your presentation should be there. It's the very first one. And again, Pastor Dimitri, thank you, Pastor Miles, thank you very much for your invocation and for your service to our community. Flowing Wells is one of my favorite places in the world, and you've done so much for them. So let me read this certificate of recognition. On behalf of the citizens of Pima County, I take great pleasure in presenting this certificate of recognition to Pastor Demetrius Miles, Senior Pastor of Tucson Church International, for the outstanding contributions he has made to the citizens of Pima County for more than 20 years. Pastor Miles is a caring individual who demonstrates extraordinary character, spiritual leadership, incomparable integrity, and generosity of spirit. Some of the good works his church has sponsored over the years include adopting the Flowing Wells School District and distributing backpacks to those in need, providing laptops to enhance learning, and offering snacks and breakfast to students, teachers, and faculty. Your dedication to these students and their teachers is most commendable. Your generosity has extended beyond the classroom to other community agencies, particularly in the area of food distribution to community members struggling to make ends meet. Your good works are the definition of excellent public service. As we celebrate Clergy Appreciation Month and your 50th birthday on October 10th, 2020, may you continue to touch the lives of others for many years to come. And on behalf of the people of Pima County, we salute you for sharing your gifts and your talents with our city and our county, and for making a difference in the lives of so many people. Dated the 6th day of October 2020. Again, thank you, Pastor. And if you want, I'd love to get a photo of the two of you holding that, if you would. And here comes our photographer. And it's nice to know, Pastor, that you're a Libra. So am I.
Thank you so much.
If you want to say a few more words, you're welcome, Pastor. No.
Thank you so much for this commendation.
No, thank you for all that you do, all the good you do. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next, I'll go ahead and move to item number 5, which is the National Period Day in Pima County. Supervisor Villegas.
Second. I'll second.
Motion.
Oh, I thought you made the motion.
I'll second if you make the motion.
I'll make the motion to move the item.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed,
Aye.
please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Supervisor Villegas.
Thank you. I'll first have a point of privilege to say that before I read the resolution to recognize National Period Month, I want to take this opportunity to highlight a few other causes that we remember in October, aside from the mourning month as well. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we don't have a resolution for that, but as a survivor, this one is personal. I ask you to know your family history, know your risk, and get your checkups. Early detection saves lives. The other October month is Domestic Awareness Month. We must remain diligent in identifying abuse by standing up, speaking up, and supporting Emerge, the agency we all rely on to provide services to domestic violence survivors, and continuing to work on education programs within our community. Another awareness week is Mental Illness Awareness Week, which is October 4th through October 10th. This is a national public education campaign designed to help raise the awareness of the mental illness and reduce the harmful effects of stigma. Mental health is often misunderstood, misrepresented, and stigmatized, leading to fear, with people hiding their mental health concerns. And now to the National Period Day resolution. Many of us baby boomers, which includes me, may
Supervisor
not...
Villegas, if I can ask Ms. Verdugo to please come up.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you had somebody to present to. Supervisor, if you could proceed.
Okay. Many of us baby boomers, which includes me, may not be comfortable talking publicly about menstruation or period, But when Amanda from my staff brought it to my attention, I realized the importance and knew I had to speak up, especially now with the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I will now read the resolution, and I want to thank the YWCA and the Diaper Bank for all their work in this area to always try to have these products available for the public. Thank you so much. Whereas access to menstrual products as a basic human need for menstruators, and whereas menstrual equity means everyone who gets a period deserves to have access to menstrual products so they can be fully active in society, be healthy, and succeed at school and work. And whereas local, state, and federal government policies often cause or exacerbate inequitable access to menstrual products by imposing sales taxes on them, limiting access to these products in prisons and jails, exempting menstrual products from public health benefits programs, and not making these products uniformly available in public places such as schools and homeless shelters. And whereas, according to Arizona law, menstrual products are deemed non-essential goods, and whereas too often the choice has to be made between purchasing menstrual products and other necessities, causing menstruators to miss school or work and use absorbent materials such as rags, toilet paper, or socks, which can lead to health problems. And whereas in the United States, 1 in 5 girls has missed school due to lack of access to menstrual products, and missing just a few days of a school year can lead to significant performance gaps. And whereas incarcerated menstruators often have to choose between accessing medical care, buying menstrual products, or speaking to their families or their attorneys on the phone. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Saturday, October 10th, to be National Period Day in Pima County, passed and adopted the 6th day of October 2020. Thank you once again. And I also want to invite everyone to a drive-through event that the county, the city, the Diaper Bank, and the YWCA will have on Saturday, October 10th from 8 to 11, where you can bring unopened new tampons and pads, and all donations will go to the Diaper Bank and YWCA of Southern Arizona. Anyone who donates will be entered into a free raffle, and the first 75 donors will receive a free EG's coupon. This will be held at the Pima County Housing Center, 801 West Congress Street, and you must wear a mask, and this will be a drive-through event, and they actually have boxes available now if you want to drop products off at the YWCA and or at the Diaper Bank as well. Thank you. So please say a few words.
Ms. Verdugo.
Supervisor Villegas, Chairman Valadez, Board of Supervisors, thank you for supporting Project Period, for declaring October 10th as National Period Day in Pima County. Free feminine hygiene product to young women and women who struggle financially is critical. We are dedicated to ensuring that these women do not go without the necessary products to live a full and healthy life. Thank you for bringing awareness to this need and for ensuring that we continue to make available these supplies to all women. This crisis has been financially challenging for many women, and this support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Supervisor Villegas, Chairman Valdez, and members of the Board of Supervisors. I don't think that I can do much justice of what Magdalena just said, but I'm deeply humbled, and we really appreciate your support and your acknowledgement of such a great need in the Tucson community. Without your support and the support of the Tucson community, there are many women that would, as Magdalena said, that would not have the ability to take advantage of such a great cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know, right? I think it's this.
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
yeah. One for
Are you photobombing?
I'm photobombing.
All right, next we'll move to item number 6, presentation proclamation for Arnold Palacios. Chair will move the item.
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Mr. Palacios, I saw you. If you could please come up. And you'll notice also, not only do you have the proclamation there in front of you, you have your philobomb as well. Okay? Whereas Arnold Palacios is a native son of Tucson, a Pueblo high school warrior, and a University of Arizona graduate, and throughout the span of Mr. Palacios' career, he has always been first and foremost an educator with a passion for and a belief in youth. And whereas for more than 45 years, Mr. Palacios has been a part of Pima County, with 15 of those years in leadership positions in workforce development, and the other 30 years involved with youth education and employment. He started his career as a teacher and later took positions as a job developer and supervisor of youth summer programs through partners like TUSD, Serve for Jobs, Tucson Youth Development. And whereas in 2018, Mr. Palacios stepped into the leadership role as Director of Community Services, Employment and Training Department and led the successful merger with the Community Development and Neighborhood Conservation into a newly formed Community and Workforce Development Department. And whereas Mr. Palacios has helped hundreds of job seekers complete their high school diploma or high school equivalency and become full participants in the economic development of Arizona. And whereas Mr. Palacios has proudly served Pima County and the community he grew up in and has earned a well-deserved retirement effective September 30th, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors joins with all the citizens of Pima County to honor you and express our heartfelt gratitude, and hereby proclaims Tuesday, October 6, 2020 to be Mr. Arnold Palacios Community and Workforce Development Appreciation Day, passed and adopted this 6th day of October 2020.
Chairman Valadez, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, thank you so much. I am so humbled. And this recognition for myself, but also for our whole Department of Community and Workforce Development, my coworkers, it's appreciated, and thank you so much. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. Thank you.
And obviously, it was being a Pueblo high school warrior that helped you out. That's it.
PhD, Supervisor Valadez.
Want to get a photo?
Yeah.
Either one of those up, or I want you to-
Oh, you've got to hold your philobomb.
Oh, yes.
Be careful, though.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he got me. That's why I was telling you, be careful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arnold. All right, we will move on to item 7, call to the public. First speaker is Robert Royce. Mr. Royce?
Good morning, I'm Robert Royce. Old Tucson is closing, and the responsibility for the maintenance and security is going to fall on the citizens of Tucson, or excuse me, Pima County, when the tenants move out. I'm envisioning probably the best use for the site would be for a large native art market. with, if you can envision the place for 7 months of the year, for weekends at least, full of native artists and art dealers, with 10% of the gross of the retails going to the county, which is going to come to ultimately more than the $50,000 you were renting the place out as an amusement park. I've been in the wheat shoal art business since 2005. I had a shop on 4th Avenue for 5 years. I got tired of losing my winter profits in the summer and wasting too much time. So I've been doing wholesale, mostly out of state, and I would like a venue where I didn't have to go running around the western U.S. to try to grub up a living and keep the artists that I patronize in business. So, Sharon, it's your district.
Actually, I think it's
Supervisor Bronson. Oh, I'm supposed to, I can't address individual. Okay, let me put.
No, I'm just saying it's Supervisor Villegas' district, not my
No,
district.
it's not yours.
No.
I thought you had everything west of the Tucson Mountains. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, Supervisor
Not quite.
Villegas will be gone when the new board is seated. But I would ask everyone, there's only 2 of you, of our current members that will be here, but we can relieve the citizens of the county of the responsibility for the financial upkeep by turning it into a robust art market, not just a robust art market, but the most robust art market for native art in North America. This is we're 60 miles from the end of Mexico 200. 80% of the fine art in Mexico is made within 100 miles of Mexico 200. It's just logical that we should start thinking about it. And Sharon, you will probably be the board chair when the new board is seated, so I asked you personally to start thinking about this, because personally I can't think of a better use for the facility. We definitely don't want to have the county taxpayers pitching in to pay for the maintenance and the security if we can turn it into a going business that can carry its own weight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Royce. Next, I'd like to ask Gretchen Dask. Please come up. Dashke, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Gretchen Dashke. I'm here today on behalf of my family. We just got done with a lawsuit against DCS and the Pima County Sheriff's Department and was awarded $1.1 million. Anyway, and despite of that, I know the sheriff was told he had to retire, they would fire him, so he went off and there was some justice done there. But when it comes to the DCS workers, they now have a judgment against them in the federal court, and they are still working for DCS, and they're still in the courts defending DCS and why they're tearing families apart. And I want to know why, if they have a judgment and they were found guilty for illegally taking my kids and they wanted to take them for 12 months or whatever else. I'm sorry, this is hard for me to talk. It was a very traumatic situation. Why are they still working? Why are they still going in the courts and being able to testify? I have proof that they lied under oath. I have video showing it, the whole 9 yards. And I don't know where to begin to get that to happen, because if we don't make them accountable for their actions, it's not going to get fixed. And I'm sure all of you and everybody out there understand the system it needs to be fixed. And they just got a slap on the hand, and they're still pulling kids apart in families. So I want to ask you guys, why are they still there? Why are they still employed? And why haven't they been accountable for their actions?
All I can respond is, unfortunately, the law under this section, call of the public, limits our ability to respond because it's not an agendized item. What I would ask you to do is if you could call your supervisor, whoever that may be, and maybe we'll help you individually that way and get you some answers.
So you guys know
Legally,
nothing of where to go?
legally, we can't respond during call to the public.
Okay. So I need to go to, which supervisor is that, for DCS, or?
No,
I mean, our case is done, it's
Right.
closed, I
What
mean,
I'm asking you to do is go ahead and contact your county supervisor, and then we may be able to point you in the right direction if it's not us.
okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you. Next, Keith Van Heinigen.
Good morning. I'm Keith McNinan, and I'm an American and apparently a serf. I'm here today because of Ramon Valdez versus Kelly Walker, the guy from Viva Coffee House. We all know that you were mentored by Richard Elias, the infamous. But I must say, you let your inner fascist out of the doghouse the other week. 15 years ago, I had pet names for all of you. They're not so nice anymore. The medical fascism that you're putting this county through is, in fact, killing this county. You're not going to be able to replace most of us fast enough with Californians to pay your taxes. Lord knows you can't fix a road or pay a pension around here. Glad to see that the most outrageously compensated government con man in the country is here today. Not in his approval, obviously. You want to fix this county? Vote for Steve Spain, Gabrielle Mercer, and Steve Christy. If you elect another Grijalva to this board, I'll be here laughing all the way. Please do not follow radical Reina Romero's lead and go down the path of an organization called CARE or Race Forward. Their entire corporate plan is to interrogate, indoctrinate, and eliminate white city and county employees. The groups known as BLM and Antifa, what I can tell, what I've seen, are nothing more than domestic terrorist organizations. God bless America. God bless our president. And get this lame duck fascist out of my face. Bye, Ramon.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'm going to call John Lashlix. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning. My name's John Lashley. I have some handouts. Can I approach and hand these out or not?
If you can give them to the clerk, and she will take care of that.
Yes, I will.
I'm sorry. Sort of segregated by.
See, I ate into my time by handing out already. Okay. Anyway, my name's John Lashley. I manage Tucson Speedway for the county. For the last 6 months since the pandemic started, we have been doing events subject to the health department requirements. We have had 0 complaints, 0 cautions from the health department. We have done 16 races, events, and movie nights at the track. Last Thursday, Pima Health Department sent requirements out for an indeterminate period for everybody that is a Tucson attraction or is in Pima County to follow. Prior to the 6 months, there were no requirements from Pima Health Department. We made up those health department requirements and followed them because there was no guidance whatsoever from Pima Health. So this is 6 months, 16 events, and now all of a sudden we seem to be toward the end of a pandemic, major infection rate and such, and now Pima Health seems to want to micromanage absolutely everything. Not one of our events, but one that is for the citizens of Vail. The Vail Chamber of Commerce has been under their review for over 30 days. Every time that it is 100% satisfied, they make new requirements and send them out. The handout that I'm giving you will show those requirements that come from Pima Health Department as of this Monday. This is very damaging to the tourism in the county, and this is a reflection that, in my view and that of other people, that the Pima Health Department is both trying to curtail events in the county, and by doing so, they are hurting the citizens of Pima County. So I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to take some action, to contact Pima Health Department and have them establish reasonable and verifiable requirements that the attractions in the community and the county can get within a certain amount of time so we can actually have an event go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I let you have the additional 30, go ahead. I let you have the additional 30 seconds that you took handing over your documents as well. Next, Melinda Sherwin.
Hello. To follow up on Mrs. Dashke's issue, since you're the guys and women who write the checks, that is a $1.1 million case. There is another case by Jane Doe, placed by DCS in the home of Mr. Fraudsham, which was a pedophile ring. And then Jane Doe was placed with a family by the name of Osteros, where she was scalded from her chest to her feet, third-degree burns, lost all of her toes by a forced adoption through the Department of Child and Family Services. There's a young boy who aged out, John Doe, who has a $15 million case, was placed by DCS, CPS at the time, in the Fraudsham home. There are pending multi-million-dollar cases against the Department of Child Safety. All the people in little Jane Doe and John Doe's case, as far as we know, are still employed by DCS. And I'd like to know how much we're on the hook for these cases that violate the fundamental liberty interests of families to raise their children in the state of Arizona. I am with an organization called Court Watch. We are a grassroots group. We are in the courts several times a week watching this happen. Children are being seized without proper warrants, cause, or due process. Custody is being flipped in the family law courts based on the feelings and hunches of third-party appointees, caseworkers who are forced on parents. If a parent comes forward with their own private insurance and a psychological exam that is conducted by high-level, highly qualified PhDs in the dependency courts and the family law courts, if you are not on the favored court list of their evaluators, your evidence of your well-being, mental well-being, is thrown out. It's not held in evidence. So again, you guys are writing the checks. I want to know where I can go to find out how much we are on the hook for these multi-million-dollar cases. And if you are the Board of Supervisors, who is overseeing this agency?
Ma'am, a couple things. You've exceeded your 3 minutes, but I will tell you that DCS is actually a state agency, if I'm not mistaken. I misunderstood earlier because they brought up the Sheriff's Department. But again, we're in call to the public, so our ability to really respond is a little limited. So I'm going to ask you to please contact one of us, whoever is your supervisor, and we'll try and help out and get those answers.
Okay, all I want to know is how much is this county being sued for?
Ma'am,
do I go to the clerk of the supervisors? Where do I get the information? That's all I want to know.
That's what I'm asking you. Go ahead and call your supervisor, and we'll get that information for you. We just have a very limited ability under law to answer during call to the public.
Under law?
Under law.
Well, I'd like to know which law that is.
Thank you.
Could you cite it?
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you for thanking me.
Next, we'll invite Jill Henderson. Please come up, identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Jill Henderson, District 3 homeowner. I'm here to make a few quick comments, and then I'll leave you with some literature. I want to thank Allie Miller. She's not here. I don't know if she's listening, for all she does here. Chairman Valadez, I think your actions at the last meeting were disgusting. I support Viva Coffee House. A quote from U.S. Attorney General William Barr on COVID, lockdowns and mandates. Other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history. Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs quote, mask mandates show where we can choose to go, on a path of renewed freedom or down the path of untethered government control of every aspect of our lives, which will surely lead to ruin. September 9th, 1 month ago. I will leave you with a YouTube link from Peggy Hall from the healthamerican.org. I quote, there is a federal law, Title 18, U.S. Code 1038, and it is about false information and hoaxes. Yes, There actually is a federal law where you can go to prison if you provide false information and misleading information relating to biological hazards, unquote. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. All right. I have no more, no cards of anyone wishing to speak a call to the public. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion and second to move into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We will return at the sound of the gavel. Here we go.
Hello?
Hello, Supervisor Miller. You're loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive session item 1 on the addendum involves Shires v. Carlott, Arizona Supreme Court case number CV 20-0027PR. County Attorney's Office seeks direction on whether to file an amicus curiae brief on behalf of Pima County in support of the city of Peoria.
Mr. Chairman, move to file an amicus brief in support of the city of Peoria.
As discussed in the executive session.
As discussed in the executive session.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 Ayes have it. Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards, Library District Board, revision to Board of Supervisors policy.
Move the item.
Motion and a second to approve item number 8. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Next is consent calendar. Are there any items that any member would like to take separately?
If not, I move consent in its entirety.
Motion and a second to approve consent in its entirety. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 10, updates and action on COVID-19. Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yesterday we provided you with the 11th update regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. We provided additional information as well as the weekly infection rates and the location of those, and described a number of items that we've been involved in. I think the summary would be fairly simple, is that over the last 3 weeks, we've seen a steady decline in the number of infections within the region, and that's Pima County. 3 weeks ago, we had 961 infections in a 1-week period. That fell to 438 the following week, and in the week most recently that closed on this Saturday, 334. Our biggest concern earlier was the University of Arizona. And if you look at the 961 cases, 687 of those were at the University of Arizona, or 71%. And the following week, that had dropped to 207 out of the 438. And then this most recent week, we're at 76 out of 334. So the actions that were imposed by the health department, which was basically a voluntary quarantine, over a very specific geographic area. In addition, the health department suspended the pool permits of any institution within that area, which basically closed many of the pools that were in off-campus student housing, as well as the gymnasiums in those same facilities and common areas. And actions of the university also with regard to breaking up parties that were occurring mostly in the fraternities and sororities has also led to that decline. So I think we're obviously optimistic that the current process and outbreak is under control. We obviously
monitor these things weeks at a time, not simply days. And so I think that the next 2 weeks will tell us a little bit more about the regional infections and whether we have any additional outbreaks that may occur as we start to, in the next couple of weeks, begin hybrid learning in schools. That's our next issue of concern. But we have established liaisons with all the school districts, with our public health agency, ready to basically respond if that occurs. I don't have anything more really to add. You can read the report as well as anyone else. I do know that we have provided, at least in the front page, an issue, because I think we had heard previously, well, we have some cases reported this way and some cases are reported that way. What we've done is shown you how the cases are actually reported. Some of the confusion is in one case it's a date reported by the case, and the next it's actually collection date of the sample. I don't think that makes much difference as to what the different numbers are, but you can see the trends. The trends are all the same. So with that, Dr. Garcia, do you have anything to add?
Dr. Garcia.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, the only thing that I would add is that during the last couple of weeks, we've been working very intensely with our colleagues at the University of Arizona in the implementation of the restrictions that are associated with the University of Arizona outbreak, and those have largely ended as of last week. That is that the voluntary stay-at-home recommendation has been lifted. One of the things that we continue to monitor very closely is how that is impacting both infections there in the immediate area as well as surrounding census tracts, and trying to be mindful of the kinds of social activities and interactions that are occurring. At this time, things look like they are on the mend. Things look like they are continuing to move on in a positive direction, and I think that is a positive note. The other thing that I would note is that as per the county administrator's previous memoranda, we have really expanded our mobile testing, especially with regards to vulnerable communities, especially with regards to areas of town and of the county that may have been underserved. And that really has expanded tremendously. That is well summarized, I believe, in the memo. Most notably, our outreach in some of these communities has generated lots of buy-in on the part of those communities. We've identified those census tracts that are adversely impacted by COVID in general, as well as the co-occurring poor socioeconomic conditions. And so that has been our focus. Most recently, for example, one of the testing efforts, mobile testing efforts, has been at Quincy Douglas, Dunbar, various churches, and for the first time, something that is occurring for the first time in Arizona, we've been able to pair some of that testing with influenza vaccination. That occurred at Dunbar Springs Center on a trial basis, and we'll be looking to expand to other community facilities. So that concludes my remarks.
Supervisor Villegas. No.
It's on. Okay, there you go. I just want to say thank you to Francisco and the team for your diligence. It's good to see the numbers go down, especially on the south side of District 5, and the work that you're doing by the university. I also encourage everyone to look at the new dashboard on the Public Health Department website. It's very inclusive, and you'll be able to get a lot more information from it. And I know that we still have issues, and it's really important that we press on. It's important that we don't let our guard down, and that we keep educating our community on the importance of the social distancing and the mask wearing, because we know this is what worked. And so, again, I commend the Public Health Department and the County Administrator's Office for being diligent and for listening to concerns. And I just, one thing I do want to say with the university, I think we need to be really careful with where they're going, because I heard some rumors that they're renting Airbnbs for parties, and so I don't know how we can stop that or confirm that, but just be on the lookout, and it's really going to take the community to be on the lookout as well. So again, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christy.
Yes, I don't know where this question should be directed to, either Dr. Garcia or Mr. Huckleberry, but I want first to confirm something. Looking at the county website under the reporting for the ability to file a complaint about a business not being in compliance with the regulations, I just want to confirm that the county states that it does not pursue or investigate anonymous complaints. Is that correct?
Mr. Huckleberry. Dr. Garcia.
So the practice of the health department and the practice of a lot of health departments is to follow up on every single complaint, whether it is anonymous or not. The actions taken by the health department typically reflect only those complaints that have been validated, whether or anonymous or not. So our actions only reflect validated complaints.
Well, I think if you go to the website and the page for filing complaints, there is a statement that says that the county the health department will not investigate anonymous complaints.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, I think the key is if it's truly anonymous, meaning that there's no one attached to it and no one will give a name or any information that can be followed up, then there's no way to investigate.
Okay, I'm looking at the site right now, and it does make references that the county will not investigate anonymous complaints, which I think is fine. My point of these questions are, how do you verify the identification of someone who complains as being a legitimate individual who actually exists and is complaining? What's the process there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Christy, every complaint that's attached to either an email address or a phone number receives a follow-up call from the county. It's either my office or the public health agency, so there is verification that the complaint was made, and the purpose of the call or the email contact is to gain additional information that might help in the investigation.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the issue that the community is experiencing right now is on the enforcement side, and clearly there is a great deal of controversy, confusion, and consternation by businesses being forced to comply with inspection codes. They have identified a number of areas with the enforcement side. For instance, inexperienced inspectors from the health department. Many of the Pima County health inspectors seem to be newly hired and unaware of the laws and applications of those laws. This just adds to the confusion. There is now the perception that there is selective enforcement, that some establishments have received multi-inspections while others have not had one. And this creates that mistrust and that confusion in the business community as well. And the businesses are already adversely affected particularly most restaurants and bars who have needed to spend money on increased cleanliness protocol and extra staff, while at the same time they are required to operate and with reduced guests. So clearly there are flaws in the enforcement system. There are areas that need to be revisited and refined and brought back into focus and discussion. And I think the most controversial and the issues filled with the most animosity-provoking items between the county and private businesses are the face mask requirement violations and the business and community violations, which are on the county website. And at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to move that the following 2 pages on Pima County's website be removed and terminated. The first page is the face mask requirement violation, and the second page is the business and community violations.
I will second that, but I have some comments and possibly some additions.
Supervisor Miller?
I'm in agreement with Supervisor Christy, and I think the issue comes from, and I know we had a long discussion about this at the time when the rules were set up regarding anonymous reporting, because there are legal implications here for these businesses, and they have a right to meet their accuser and cross-examine their accuser. And so that's the anonymous thing. We agreed up front, which I believe is why it's on the website, that there would be no anonymous complaints. I'm still hearing issues with folks being attacked on social media. And we discussed this in the last board meeting, and it all comes back to the wall of shame and the fact that there are individuals out there who are targeting certain businesses and constantly filing complaints because they want to either drive that person out of business, or they're targeting them for their religious beliefs or political beliefs. And this is out there, and it's been getting louder and louder. And one of the businesses that contacted me, that they told me that they have had 11 or 12 inspectors visits, and that some of those inspectors stay there for 3 to 4 hours on their site, from a minimum of about an hour to 3 to 4 hours. That's pretty heavy-handed. I think, going out and observing is fine, but when you're spending 3 to 4 hours at a business, that's half of their business day. And it also isn't giving the public a real good feeling about what's going on here. I don't know if these people go in with name tags and badges that say they're from the Pima County Health Department or not. And I also heard the same thing that Supervisor Christy is hearing, is that there are a lot of new and people doing the enforcement that do not understand the rules, and they're having to make calls back, which it's fine to get clarification, but it's causing a lot of confusion. And one of the things I was told yesterday was that if you have a party of 10 coming into a restaurant, that none of them can be seated until all 10 of them are there. I did not know that. I thought if I got there, with a couple of my friends and I was meeting other people, that I could go ahead, get the table, and then people could come in. I don't think the restaurant would have any way of knowing that you have 10 people coming in. So I think that makes that very difficult, that they have to be doing this type of enforcement when, there's all these questions about how we're executing. The other thing that I think would help this situation tremendously and actually aid and assist these businesses is to get rid of the wall of shame altogether. Keep that an internal document for the health department to use. And instead of allowing these people to continue to target these businesses. And we saw in the last meeting what an unfortunate situation that created. because this individual is so stressed out. And they were getting death threats. They were, the young lady that was there to testify, she was threatened with rape. And this all stems from this wall of shame. So I would like to, I definitely support that we eliminate that, maybe keep it internally for the health department to use. And also, I think we need a lot more education for our enforcement people, because I've heard this from numerous different businesses that one will come out and tell them one thing, and then they say, wait a minute, we were told this, and then they have to make a call back, so it's creating a lot of confusion. So I would like to see, more education of the enforcement people, and let's just end this wall of shame, because who is it serving? It's serving a group of vindictive individuals who want to, for whatever reason, and whether it's religious reasons, whether it's political reasons, it is discrimination, and it's assisting in that discrimination against these restaurant owners. And they also feel very targeted, that there are such a very long list of rules against for restaurants and bars. While we heard the gentleman testify earlier that he had a business, it was a speedway, and he didn't even know there were any requirements for them. So I think there's a case to be made that there is a lot more enforcement against restaurants and bars than there is against any other sector of the population. And I would like to hear from the county attorney on that one.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a point of clarification on my motion?
Supervisor Christy?
Just so everybody's clear on the motion, I'm asking for the removal of the face mask requirement, the violations page. That is known as the wall of shame. And the second item that I'm asking to be removed and terminated from the Pima County website, the business and community violations, that's known as the snitch line. So just to back up what Supervisor Miller is saying, and it has also been noted that there are the same businesses on both the violations and on the ones that have passed the inspections. We've got a number of businesses that are on both lists and have remained on those lists. So clearly, these wall of shame and the snitch line need to be completely removed, and this is part of the enforcement issue that is roiling the community, and it's even gotten more confusing when you see the same business on both lists. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion before us. Is there any further comments or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Roll call, please, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Bronson?
No.
Supervisor Christy?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Villegas?
No.
Chairman Valadez?
No. By your vote of 2 to 3, motion fails. Are there any further comments?
Chairman?
Supervisor Christie.
In light of the failure of the motion to pass, I would like to make another motion to address the items that I discussed earlier about the business community and the restaurant community having mixed messages, and the issues that are being driven by the enforcement side that really need to be completely reanalyzed, revisited, redefined. So I would like to move that the Board of Supervisors direct the Pima County Health Department to revisit and address current restaurant inspection and enforcement procedures, as there is a need to clarify policy and improve the inspection process so the current issues and confusion that is being experienced by the restaurant business community and other businesses can be avoided and quickly ended.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd like to get my issues addressed if we're, as Supervisor Christy is making a motion.
Supervisor Miller?
The clarification. Yes?
He's made a motion. Would you like to second the motion?
I will second the motion, but I would like to add the things that I brought up as well, and I will go through that list. I would like to add that we do a significant amount of training for the new enforcement people. I would like to add that we clarify and end anonymous complaints, because I'll go back and pull the video. We had a tremendous amount of discussion on this, and we agreed, as is defined on the website, that anonymous complaints would not be accepted. So I'd like a response on that now from either the health department or the county attorney. Don't these people have a right to know who is complaining against them?
Counsel.
And if you want me to wait until after the motion, I will, and we want to vote on that first, that's fine, I can do that.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and do that, Supervisor Miller, and I'm going to ask Counsel to please address some of the issues you brought up. Counsel.
Mr. Chairman, before we make a vote on the motion, is there an opportunity for Supervisor Miller to make any friendly amendments to my motion?
Tell you what, I've been trying to get an answer to the question she keeps asking, but if you could please let Counsel answer the questions, and then I'll let her proceed, okay?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I understand the question, it is whether there is a right to know the identity of the complainant. The answer is no.
All right, Supervisor Miller.
So the discussion that we had, where there are legal actions that can be taken against these businesses, they have no right to know who is filing a complaint against them?
Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Miller, there is not a right to know who the complainant is. The complaint initiates an investigation by the health department, and actions only taken based on validated complaints, meaning the investigation has validated the complaint. So that's the due process that's provided, and that satisfies any applicable legal requirement.
Supervisor Miller.
I would like to go back to the fact that we had a significant discussion on this and agreed that we would not be accepting anonymous complaints. As it is, Supervisor Christy pointed out, it is defined on the website. So what are we going to do to eliminate confusion here? Mr. Huckleberry, I guess that would go to.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I think the confusion basically eliminates itself. In a previous update report, I think I reported that we had received something like 1,500 complaints, and that I think found only about 40 of them valid, and then only acted on about 20. So you can see the ratio is pretty obvious. It's almost impossible for us to follow up on an anonymous complaint, and because there's no one to verify anything. So, if the board wants to say don't follow up on anonymous complaints, we probably don't. We don't do it anyway because there's no one to contact. I think the main point.
So then why don't we eliminate it?
Main point is that we'll listen to any concern that gets expressed to us, whether or not and we'll assess it whether it has any validity. And I can tell you that typically anonymous complaints exclusively fall into the no action category.
But what you're telling me is that we will follow up on anonymous complaints.
Mr. Chairman, we will look at every complaint that comes across our desk.
Then I suggest we change the website to reflect what we're doing, that we will follow up on anonymous complaints, because Supervisor Christy just pointed out that the website says we do not follow up on anonymous complaints.
If Supervisor Miller would like to include that in my motion, I'd be most willing to allow that.
Yes, I would. And I would also like to ask that the health department and the county administration examine why this wall of shame. Why do we feel, and I don't know if somebody has the answer there right now, why do we feel that this is an important function to put people's names up there, restaurant names up there, and leave them up there and allow them to be targeted? Because that is what is happening. They are being targeted. It played out in last week's board meeting. You saw individuals being threatened physically. And I don't understand the purpose of this. I don't understand what we as a county are trying to accomplish. Aren't we trying to assist the businesses, help them be in compliance, understand what our requirements are, versus we want to put you up on a wall so that people can target you, make phone calls to your home, threaten you with rape? This is unacceptable, and I don't know why we would want to keep that up there in the public square when this kind of activity is happening against these businesses. And the health department or Mr. Huckleberry, I'll be happy if one of you could answer that. What is the purpose of this quote, wall of shame?
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you recall, it was actually placed in I believe the resolution or the policies that dealt with the iterative process that went back and forth with members primarily of the Restaurant Association. Initially, there were monetary penalties and fines, and those were all deleted to basically go to education. First violation, education. Second violation, education. The third violation of the same, and I think you have to read it very carefully, the same exact issue. And if in fact you found a third violation, the remedy was, and the board approved, that you would publicly disclose the violation and the name of the firm or the violator, because it was in, I believe, the opinion of both the staff and I think the board in enacting the requirement, that the public had a right to know what the potential exposure was to COVID-19 or the probability of being infected in an institution or a restaurant or a business that had a disregard for the same disregard for conditions that have been designed to minimize the infection rate and spread of COVID-19.
And if we'll recall, part of that was a discussion with the Arizona Restaurant Association as well as other restaurants, and there was a compromise because originally there were, as Mr. Huckleberry said, potential both fiscal and civil penalties, which this board decided to do away with, but this was the compromise.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to again reiterate that I'm looking right now on the website. There are two businesses. One is, both of them are both on the Ready For You list, and both of them are on the Wall of Shame list. And I think this needs to be analyzed and responded to as well. How can this happen? Where is all the confidence building that this whole enforcement system is supposed to be producing in the business community and in the general community when you have two examples of two businesses being on both lists?
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it is possible that they can, because they have maybe passed an inspection by the health agency and received the Ready For You certificate, and then based on the investigation of subsequent complaints with an investigation by the health inspector found to be in violation, and that violation occurring multiple times, and then they are in fact then listed on the web page as pursuant to the resolution, And it is then the Ready for You certificate is taken down in a subsequent week.
I would have to disagree with that analysis because these two businesses have been on both lists for many weeks. And I think your response to this issue just illustrates and is indicative of the situation in the community of confusion and unfairness, and that obviously the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing in the health department on these issues, and this is why there needs to be a complete reformation of the enforcement policies and procedures. There needs to be clarity and transparency in how the enforcement procedures are conducted, and obviously with the response in the restaurant community and the general public, it's not working what we're doing, and it needs to be fixed. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be brought back to this board, and it needs to have the discussion of all parties concerned right away, because the next meeting we have could be a death sentence for many of these businesses, because it could be an eternity as far as them trying to stay in business until the next time we meet. So that is the force of my motion, that this be analyzed and reviewed immediately and brought to the Board of Supervisors so we can clarify these actions that make no sense and that create confusion, and the boiling point in the community and in the businesses is reaching the point where these kinds of issues are going to create even more issues, unintended consequences.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller, let me ask Dr. Garcia to please respond to some of the training issues that have been brought up for some of the inspectors, because I think we need to kind of really flesh out that point a little bit. Dr. Garcia?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, indeed we have increased the number of people within the health department that are devoted to this function. That has been one of the challenges that we faced. We've done this in response to the increased need for those kinds of inspections and services. I'll remind the board that until they gave us this direction, we did not really have the infrastructure to conduct these types of inspections in the way that they were envisioned. Our inspectors, our environmental health services workers, are actually very well trained. They are certified, and in fact there are several levels of sophistication. We maintain a very high degree of a very high training standard. Folks are actually have their supervisors do their inspections with them when they are newly hired and for a period of time. I cannot remember if it's 3 months or 6 months, and I have a great deal of confidence in them. Now, please understand that part of what we've been dealing with here is a changing landscape in terms of what the state's expectation is of what our health department should and should not do in this space. The expectation from the governor and from the State Department of Health has been a shifting landscape that we have had to respond fairly acutely to. So yes, that has led at times to misinterpretations or confusion on the part of the way that, perceived confusion on the part of the way that we are implementing these things. But it is not arbitrary, nor is it done in a punitive fashion. Our inspectors work ultimately to get to yes with operators, even bad operators, even operators who persistently are troublesome. We try very, very hard to get to yes with them, because we believe it is in the public health best interest that operators be operating reasonably and within certain standards. So we bend over backwards, in fact, to try to get to yes, and sometimes that we're not able to get there.
All right, Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
I guess what I think this gets back to, when I look at these metrics, I think, how do you set up metrics for success? And I'm talking about success of all parties involved. And what I'm seeing, and by putting up this wall of shame and putting people on these various lists, it's our failure. It's Pima County's failure to either communicate effectively, to educate effectively, to assist. Because I don't think we should be in a punitive role, and that's exactly what's happening here. And especially with the situation of certain individuals in the community that want to penalize these businesses. There are some people out there, we all know it. We heard the gentleman read those comments in the boardroom. And Dr. Garcia just said, the landscape is constantly shifting. So with that in mind, I would really appreciate if we could go back and really look at this and say, is this the appropriate way to be doing this? And what I'm seeing is we all talked about the shifting landscape. We talked about the shifting requirements, very confusing for everybody, but we're unwilling to go back. This board is unwilling to go back and reevaluate. What is the issue with not, taking a second look? Reevaluating this, I don't understand why there's so much resistance. It sounds like a very penalty-driven environment to me when we're unwilling to even look at our own policies and procedures and say, maybe we could do some tweaking here. Dr. Garcia says the enforcement folks are very highly trained. I assume there is some good training. However, these businesses are reporting back time and time again that individuals come out and tell them something different than the last person that went out to visit their site. And I think a good thing for these businesses to start doing when they're asking these questions is to start holding up a video camera to prove it, because no one on this board is willing to trust that they're giving us honest feedback. So are we going to ask these businesses, I would advise them, put a video camera up when the inspector comes in and record what they're telling you so that we can prove it to this board that we need to go back and look at them. I don't understand the resistance, and I'd like someone that is resistant to this to explain why you're unwilling to go back and take a look. We'll come back and convene it and say, whether we agree with it or not, but why are you unwilling to even take a look?
All right, there's
Is that the sound of crickets that I'm hearing?
Supervisor Christy, would you please restate your motion again?
It appears to be.
Supervisor Christy, would you please restate your motion so that we can go ahead and be very clear what the motion does?
My motion, and it's open for friendly amendments, is that I move that the Board of Supervisors direct the Pima County Health Department to revisit and address current restaurant inspection and enforcement procedures, as there is a need to clarify policy and improve the inspection process so the current issues that we are now discussing and the confusion that we are now experiencing can be avoided and quickly ended.
All right, that's the motion. That's the motion before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Roll call, please, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Bronson?
No.
Supervisor Christy?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller? She lost her. We lost her.
Why don't we go back to her?
Supervisor Villegas?
No.
Chairman Valadez?
No. And let's see if Supervisor Miller is back. I didn't hear the ping though. Let's give it a moment.
Is there any attempt to contact Supervisor Miller? Maybe there was a connection.
Supervisor Miller?
Supervisor Miller? Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
We were taking a roll call vote.
Hello?
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Supervisor
Hello?
Miller, can you hear us? Supervisor Miller?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you're up for your vote.
Supervisor Miller?
What was the motion? My phone hung up.
The motion is that I move that the Board of Supervisors direct the Pima County Health Department to revisit and address current restaurant inspection and enforcement procedures, as there is a need to clarify policy and improve the inspection process so the current issues that we are discussing and the confusion that we are experiencing can be avoided and quickly ended.
And would you accept that we do this in conjunction with the business commission that is set up to work on
Supervisor
this?
Miller, that is out of order. The motion is, we're in the middle of a vote. It's either yay or nay. I'm sorry, I apologize for that, but Robert's rules dictate that the only response is either aye or nay.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor Miller. I apologize for interrupting. By your vote of 2 to 3, motion fails. Supervisor Miller. Supervisor Miller?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to, as I was requesting earlier, request that we have staff analyze this, and I don't know why any member of the board isn't willing to allow this analysis to go forward and see if there are any issues. And so I would make a motion that we go back and ask the county staff to analyze these complaints that we're hearing from the restaurants and analyze our policies and procedures and come back to the board and make a recommendation.
Supervisor Miller, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from Supervisor Christie's motion, that is duplicative. However, we may be... let me finish. Supervisor Christie, let me finish. However, if you'd like, we can take that as staff direction, in which case it's not duplicative.
Okay, that would be fine if staff would go and look at this and analyze whether or not there are significant issues. And I really would like someone to address the fact that these restaurants are getting threatened by individuals in the community as a result of this wall of shame.
And may I add to that, Supervisor Miller, that we receive that analysis and report back by the next board meeting?
Absolutely.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I think, we'll take that as staff direction, but we have always been available to examine any specific case, any specific set of facts that would lead one to conclude that we're not appropriately following the rules or doing the inspections properly. So I would request that Supervisor Christie and Supervisor Miller, if you have specifics, please get those specifics to us and we will look at them.
Are there any further comments on item number 10? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 11, Board of Supervisors Policy number C6.3, Anti-Racketeering Revolving Fund. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. Huckleberry's memo, I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 11. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to clerk of the board, item number 12.
Move the item.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 12. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Item number 13.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 13. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to attractions and tourism, Titan Missile Museum Maintenance Project, item number 14. What's the will
Move
of the
the
board?
item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 14. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Industrial Development Authority, item number 15, a resolution number 2020-78.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 15 and resolution number 2020-78. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Transportation items 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Move the items.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those items. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Hearings, franchises, licenses, and permits, items 24, 25, and 26.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no one in the audience to address us in these hearings, move to close the hearings and approve items 24, 25, and 26.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve item 24, 25, and 26.
Hold on, she said they can't hear them. Supervisor, can't hear us?
Oh, my God.
Okay, they can't hear.
I thought they were being too quiet.
All right, you know what? We've been going at it a while. We're going to take a 10-minute recess while IT figures it out. We will return to the sound of the gavel.
You want him to try to reconnect? I'm sending a message to try to reconnect. Is that what you want me to do? We still have sound? I got somebody saying they don't have sound,
Who says they don't have sound?
one of the speakers.
Supervisor Christy, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Am I heard in the boardroom?
Yes. Supervisor Miller?
Yes, is Supervisor Valadez, is the chairman back at the dais?
Yes, we're about to start.
Okay.
Where?
I wanted to ask him a question.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Call this meeting back to order. Supervisor Christy and Miller, where did we lose you? I apologize, I didn't notice.
Mr. Chairman, we got cut off right after the COVID discussion, and then the gentleman in the boardroom told us that the phone dropped us. Number one, I would like to ask them, as soon as the phone drops us, please notify the chair so that he knows. And then I would like to ask if we could go back and revisit the items that you went through. I only have one of them that I would have a different vote than a yes vote.
All right, without objection, then I will go ahead and just go ahead and consider the reconsideration of all these items from 11 on, just so that the entire full board can vote on it. Is there any objection? Okay, if there's no objection, then we'll start again at 11.
Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. Huckleberry's memo, I move approval of item 11.
Second, all those in favor of approving item number 11, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm voting no because the attorney did not review these as the policy and procedure that we defined. Thank you.
All right, the vote by a vote of 4-1, motion carries. Clerk of the board, item number 12 and 13.
Move the items.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve item 12 and 13. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving to item number 14, Titan Missile Museum Maintenance Project.
Move the item.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the item.
It's already been moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Industrial Development Authority, item number 15, resolution number 2020-78.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Transportation, items 16 through 21.
Move 23.
23, thank you.
Move the items.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 16 through 23. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Hearings, franchises, licenses, and permits, items 24, 25, and 26.
If there's no one in the audience who wishes to address us in opposition, move to close the hearing and approve items 24, 25, and 26.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve items 24, 25, and 26. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to Development Services, item number 27, staff report.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, before you is a request to rezone approximately 12.49 acres from the SR to the CR4 zone. That would be an increase of about 3 to 55 homes if approved. The supermajority protest requirement has been achieved. There was one late redaction from a protest, but the supermajority is still in effect, as noted at the beginning of the hearing. The Pima County Comprehensive Plan designates the property as medium-intensity urban. This proposal is consistent with that designation. The property is outside the Mavine Marie Behan Conservation Land System. Staff is recommending approval subject to special and standard conditions, including an amendment to condition 2B. Would like to note that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial. Would also like to point out that the applicant has accelerated the submittal of a traffic impact study. Normally, these occur at the time of a subdivision plat, but due to neighbor and Planning and Zoning Commissioner concerns, the applicant did submit one. It hasn't been fully vetted through the Department of Transportation, but we do have some preliminary highlights from the staff analysis, just to cover some key points of the traffic impact study, the TIS. A likely outcome could be future limitations on left outs. One thing to note is that the traffic report did not include any mitigation in the conclusion. So again, it's harder for us to be specific on outcomes, but there will be some attention paid to any left out. And it looks like the level of services, for the most part, at the key intersections are being maintained, with one exception at Como and McGee, but staff does not think that this specific project is the straw that is breaking the camel's back on that. So in sum, the traffic impact study is helpful. It gives stakeholders a little more insight on the traffic story, but not 100% conclusive at this point. Would like to highlight our recommendation of approval. The property is an infill property. It appears to be an appropriate transition between existing apartments to the north and to the east, to the 1 acre homes directly to the west. The property is outside the conservation land system. And at the end of the day, they have also provided some very nuanced design considerations that make for a favorable recommendation, and I believe the applicant can speak to those more specifically. And with that, that concludes staff's report.
I have a number of speakers. Both,
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
You have speakers. Take the speakers first. I have some questions for staff.
Okay. And we do have the representative here as well, but we can get through the speakers first. All right, so I'll call Matthew North. Matthew North. Please come up, sir. Identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Mr. Chairman. Come over here, please.
My name's Matthew North. I live at the end of Como Drive, across from the subdivision. I'm not sure if we can reorganize the speakers. I wouldn't mind going last. I can reduce my time quite a bit because I'm going to speak in support of some of the other speakers.
What's the will of the board?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear that.
He says that if we allow him to go last before the representative, that he can go ahead and shorten his speech, and so I'm asking if the board would have an objection to doing that.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection.
All right, thank you. Ed Booth? As soon as she cleans, though. We won't start the timer, don't worry.
Thank you very much. We're glad to be here. It's been kind of a long time until we got in this place.
Please identify yourself for the record, sir.
My name is Ed Booth, and I'm the president of the Homeowners Association, the Tucson National Homeowners Association, and all the other folks here on our part are also members of that organization. I want to start out by saying, yes, all of the reports are accurate that this territory is considered a good place to do urban infill because of its location and size. That study was done 10 years ago, whenever it was. It's a master plan. I understand why that makes sense. Since that time, there have been some changes. However, a big change is that there's been a very big expansion of McGee Drive, and the intersection between McGee and La Cholla has been moved north, and it's been widened quite a bit with several more lanes. I don't know if you're familiar with the teacup. intersection, if you're going north on McGee, you can't go west. You have to do a T-cup and go east, so that there's 3 traffic lines coming in at that intersection going west. That didn't used to be that way. And the intersection was further south because of all of the work they had to do with the 200-year flood zone and stuff. They moved the intersection. So when that happened, and then the address of that property is on La Cholla, and that has been basically wiped out in the development of the intersection, the development of McGee. So the consequence of that is, and it's been very difficult for Mr. Yates to find any other way to get out of this property. And he has found a way to get out, and it's the easternmost driveway onto McGee. And there have been 2 traffic studies that say, 600 people coming in and out, there's 20,000 people on that thing, it's not a big deal. I don't argue with that either. Here's the concern that we had in the last 2 sessions, and we've had since then. When the Zoning Commission turned us down, they were very aware of our biggest concern is what we call safety. There's one access out of this property. And that was never considered when people talked about changing the zoning on it. It was because it was 12.5 acres in a good spot. But it's an island. Ira got cut off. He got no way in, no way out on this thing. But he cut a deal, and he got the eastmost driveway. That driveway they've been through 2 studies that Ira has had his folks do.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments, please.
Okay. They all ignore that there's a 35-degree curve, there's 3 lanes going into one, and it's a suicide location that has almost no traffic right now. So the traffic is going to go from 10 a day to 600 a day at what we consider to be the single most dangerous location in that whole area, and we can't get anybody to study it from the government's point of view. It's all, we approve subject to later stuff. Even the 2 traffic studies were not safety studies.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I'm going to call, hang on. Fred Eigenbrod. Please identify yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes.
You bet. My name is Fred Eigenbrot. I live at 7901 North Como Drive, directly across the street from the subject property, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the rezoning request. I also live in Tucson National Estates, which is a 75-home community to the west of this property. And I'm on the board of the Homeowners Association. And I can tell you unequivocally that the vast majority of our residents are opposed to this rezoning for 2 reasons. First, the homes he wants to build are not compatible with us. We're SR1, we're single-story homes, larger lots. Our community has been here for 58 years. And I think after 58 years, of being good citizens and paying the county millions of dollars in taxes, we'd like some consideration in terms of what's built across the street from us. The second reason is that he has only a single access road onto McGee. Pima County street standards require 2 access roads for 55 homes. He has 1. He has no emergency access roads. The access road that he has goes onto McGee just past a blind curve. This road is dangerous and potentially deadly. When the traffic light at Como, at La Cholla and McGee changes, and those cars go around that curve, I've clocked them going over 55 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, boom, there's his road. In addition, to the blind curve, there's merging traffic. So drivers that go around that curve are sometimes looking left and not right where his road is. This road is absolutely unacceptable and potentially deadly. You supervisors have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the roads are safe for citizens. This is not a safe road. And frankly, if this is allowed to go forward and you have deaths at that curve, you're not going to be calling it a blind curve. You're going to be calling it dead man's curve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, after the cleaning. Thank you. David Carroll. Please identify yourself for the record, sir, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm David Carroll. I live at 7801 North Como Drive. And I really just want you to hear, I know you hear a lot of complaints, and your tasks are broad throughout the county, many different items, but this community is an older community. I'm 44 years old, and I'm one of the youngest probably by far. And I'm one of the few that has children. And I have one driver, and I have 2 that'll be driving next year. And so safety is of utmost importance. And you hear that from the older population that lives across the street from this development. And, you know, I do commercial real estate for a living. I'm used to development. I'm pro-development. I like to see things change. But I also realize there's fundamental things that affect properties on whether they should be done or should not be done. And the access to this development is a big problem. The access should be onto Como. And we've tried to talk to Mr. Yates about revising his plan, maybe not being quite as dense, but we would allow access off of Como for some reasonableness. We didn't get that. Instead, our little association with mostly retired people was sued, and we had to spend most of our money in our account just to fight that lawsuit. And he has his reasons on why he did that, but the same fact is we depleted all of our funds almost in that account. And so, you know, we've had to, you know, the safety of our community and the integrity of it is important, but because of this battle, Mr. Yates purchased a strip of land that goes from his property directly onto Como through a commercial development, which has not been built yet. We have no idea what the impact of that development is going to be, but it will be something eventually. It's a busy intersection. And so that's just going to add to the congestion that's there. Again, access, it's just not the best access. And so there's a lot more to this story, and I'm sorry I don't have more than 3 minutes because I would love to give you a better idea of really the impacts, you know, that have been put in place whenever they redid the intersection at La Cholla and McGee and at Mona Lisa, which directly impact our street. But Como is a major access. It's a major access for my children that are driving. And if we add more congestion just within this little quarter-mile area, it's a safety concern. I already have my children going out a different way because I'm worried about it. Now it will be made worse because the people exiting Mr. Yates's access point will be forced to make a U-turn to go east. If you're trying to go out of Como and there's a car here making a U-turn, you can't go. And it just puts pressure. And that pressure is added to with Mona Lisa because the same thing is happening there. And I apologize for going over, but I'd really ask for this to be something that you look at, not just as your, you know, elected class, because unfortunately today I see, you know, not a lot of bipartisanship on the issues, and I don't know if that's commonplace, but this is a really important issue for all of you to consider, because it affects my family and it affects the senior citizens that live in this community and have lived there a lot longer than I have.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
This time I remember.
All right. right, and I apologize ahead of time for the pronunciation. David Blau? Blau. I did apologize ahead of time.
David Blau. I'm a resident of Tucson National Estates. I live at 7960 North Tuscany Drive. And I'm here today to ask you to vote no on this rezoning. My wife and I moved to the Tucson National Estates because it's unique. The houses are spread out. There is a lot of wildlife in the area, and I'm concerned that the traffic generated by this rezoning will go right through our neighborhood. People will not be able to turn left from Como Drive onto McGee, and so they will turn on Como and come down Tuscany to McGee where there is a light. Right through the middle of our neighborhood, a tremendous amount of traffic. Our neighborhood has no sidewalks. We do have a lot of elderly who walk every day, morning and evening, and I'm just concerned about the quality of life and its degradation with this amount of traffic that's undoubtedly going to go right through our neighborhood. To be honest with you, I feel like Mr. Yates is going to take the money and run and leave us with something that is less than what we had when we moved in. So I would ask you, appeal to you, please vote no on this. It's going to disrupt life for a lot of people in this neighborhood. And my wife and I wrote a letter to you about this, and we said, you know, if Mr. Yates wanted to build 12 houses on that lot, and which is consistent with the design of our community, that would be fine. But to put 55 houses and the resulting traffic is it's just not something our neighborhood wants. And so again, I would ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next, it's going to be Craig Courtney. Mr. Courtney? Please identify yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Chairman and board members. My name is Craig Courtney, and I reside at 4675 East Coachlight Lane in Tucson. My purpose here is twofold. First, to support the rezoning. We are the representative of Lot 5 of McGee Center. I'm a very visual person, so I was hoping that there would be a way to at least put a map up so everybody
Put it on
had a look.
the gold dot there.
Well, it sounds like it. Okay.
No.
I also brought copies, if that's acceptable, maybe make it a little easier.
All right, so I'll let you have 1 extra minute there, because obviously you took a minute to do that.
Okay. What you'll see here is I try to lay out pretty much what the area, the immediate area from La Cholla over to Como looks like. And in purple is Mr. Yates' property that's being rezoned. The property in green is the apartments that surround it. And
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to ask Mr. Courtney to speak into the mic, please.
Okay, well,
I can't hear him either.
I apologize. I will speak up. So what you see is in the yellow is McGee Center, which is the property that I represent. And that is the corner itself on the northwest west side. And across from it is another commercial project that uses access opposite of the entry that is the main access to Mr. Yates's property. So what I wanted to do is just first was to support it, indicating that we are looking for a project that has a residential component, commercial, office. The property to the west that you see in black is the Como del Sol townhouse project that has 13 townhomes that are on the south side of Mr. Yates's property. So based on the traffic and the desirability of residential coming through a commercial project and in around it, we are supportive of the idea that more residential go in and as a result gave them the access in order to allow them to get to McGee in a roadway that we're going to design that's going to be sufficient for commercial and residential. The second purpose that I'm here is Linda McAllister asked that I make sure that her letter that was sent at the last minute was received, because she asked that you be aware of the conditions that she wanted to make sure were included in the rezoning. I don't know whether you've received that letter, so I don't have to go through it.
Yes.
It's because it's this one here. So, okay, so just to follow through with what I committed to her on. So the 4 points that she raised, she was hoping Mr. Yates would work with. She represents all the 13 townhomes there, and that if he is willing to work with them on a single-story location next to their project, screening of the mechanical on their building, and taking the buffer area that they have on the south side and heavily landscaping it, they're supportive of going forward with Mr. Yates's program. The last item that she raised was the idea of having some sort of control that marries up with the Tucson National people, the complaints, the safety, and basically at this intersection where we have the thrust of the activity going out of our center and across from the office complex, she was suggesting...
please summarize.
Sure. She suggested a light. And it kind of brought up an interesting idea as to what would be facilitating the safety issue that the neighbors are concerned about by traffic flowing westerly as opposed to allowing it to flow easterly away from them. A light might be an interesting way to consider that.
All right, sir, thank you.
Okay.
All right, next, Mike Byrne. Mr. Byrne? Please identify yourself for the record, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Mike Byrne. I'm a planner with the WLB Group. And I'm here to represent Lot 4 in McGee Center. We're the business zone property just south of the applicants, 12 acres. The reason I'm here really is to strongly support the notion of a traffic light at the entry to McGee Center. We think this will start to address safety issues, traffic issues, and so on that the applicants, the opponents, have brought up. We're strongly in favor of the rezoning of the property. As a part of that rezoning, we're requesting that an action committee be developed that would include the applicant, the neighbors, and county staff to look at the feasibility of a traffic light, costs, technical issues, and so on. And then in support of the notion of a traffic light that close to La Cholla, I brought along maps and drawings that show traffic lights along Ina and McGee And you can see that the spacing really varies quite a bit. And in some cases, traffic lights are arranged much closer to each other than they are in our specific case. I'll pass these out.
Sir, if you could give them to the clerk. Thank you, sir.
Again, the drawing shows traffic lights along McGee and Ina, and again they're closer in some cases to each other than they are in our case, where we have a traffic light right now at La Cholla, and we're asking that a second light be placed at the entrance to McGee Center. And we think this will go a long way in addressing concerns of people in Tucson National, neighbors, and so on. So thank you very much for the chance to speak.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'm going to the folks that are on the phone. I have Susie Heilman. Please identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
My name is Susie Heilman. I live at 7835 North Como Drive, directly across the street from Mr. Yates's gate, which today, thankfully, is closed. Random traffic lights, random new entrances. This is all new information to those of us who have been watching this catastrophe go on for years. I am truly sorry that Mr. Yates's property is landlocked, but he's one out-of-town, interested human who wasn't paying enough attention when the turn was revised at La Cholla and McGee to secure his exit. I feel bad about that. Nobody should have to deal with this, Ira. I really do feel bad. But the fact of the matter is, I'm an old lady who likes to walk across the street to Baskin-Robbins. And right now, with no traffic because of the virus, it's easy. If you put an entrance with 600 cars coming out, there have been 0 accidents since I've lived here since 2006. The traffic study predicts 3 accidents. That's an infinite increase from 0 to 3. What if it's me? I like walking across the street. This is also not infill. Infill implies access to public transportation. The nearest bus station from the gate that Mr. Yates has put up on his property, go all the way down the driveway and to the traffic light, is more than a mile to work. And that's just from the entrance to the property, not from the houses. Nobody's going to take the bus. Everybody's going to be driving. Traffic light, there's no room to put a traffic light. People come zooming across there, and somebody's going to die. I don't know how to explain to you how upsetting this is. I'm a social worker. You could put low-income housing across the street from me, and I would be fine. But you have to give them a way to get in and out of their property. And to come up at this meeting, at this late date, seriously? To talk about a new exit road from the property and adding a traffic light? None of this has been discussed, and I can't imagine discussing this after, should you approve this property. This is a dangerous, dangerous situation here. And it's not only my neighbor's 16-year-olds who are going to be driving out there, it's me. Cars come uphill to flatten out at Como Drive, and you want to put a traffic light there? Nobody has ever driven past there and thought that a blind entrance around a blind curve where people make right turns on red, how is that a good idea? The cars coming straight want to move left. Those of us who want to turn right into McGee move right. And at that very moment where that decision has to be made, as you're accelerating or coming through the intersection to make the green light, right there on the right is an exit.
Ms. Hellman, Ms. Hellman, if you could,
you're on top of it.
Ms. Hellman, if you could summarize and conclude, please.
Oh, summarize? Vote no. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on David, I believe it's Pett?
Correct, that's me. My name is Dave Pett. I'm at 7972 North Tuscany. First, I'd like to say thank you to the board for your time, and also thank you for allowing me to do this remotely. I happen to have a wife and child who are susceptible or in a higher, susceptibility case. So being able to do this remotely really helps because this is something I'm very concerned about. And one of the things, as you've heard my neighbors bring up, that one of the main things I'm concerned about is safety. I should begin with we've worked with Mr. Yates. There's a thing, one of the other speakers brought up working as a community. We've worked with Mr. Yates on this multiple times to try and come up with a safe solution that gets him the access he needs while providing the safety that we would like to have in our neighborhood. And the first time we did that, he sued us. We came back to the table with it. We gave him all sorts of options. It went nowhere, and we're back here. And it seems like every time he doesn't want to work with us, but he'll come to you guys and we've heard that there is a traffic study, but it didn't sound like it was complete in the eyes of safety as far as speeds coming around that corner, the volume of traffic. I just learned right now that there's going to be an uptick of potentially 3 new issues at that intersection, which is terrifying to me because I, like Susie, I don't want it to be me or my son or my wife or any of my neighbors or their kids. I'm mainly concerned about the safety of that spot. And whether or not, also this late game with the signals is a little distressing as well because we, again, have tried to work with him on this, and so to see at a late stage that there's new developments being flung out is just very scary because we really want to make this work, and it just seems like it hasn't worked on his end, and now we just need to defend the safety of our residents. And so other than that, again, thank you for your time and for hearing us out, and I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt. And finally, I'm going to ask Mr. Matthew North. Please come up, sir.
Hi, Matthew North, 8101 Como. I just want to support the concerns about safety.
Chairman, I'm sorry, could you ask him to speak up, please?
Yeah, I want to support the concerns about traffic safety and then also about just the change to the environment there to a community that's been there for a very long time. One quick point, one request. You saw the map that showed in yellow a couple of business areas. There's already traffic difficulties there. People are adjusting their lives and the way they operate to deal with traffic safety. Those 2 areas haven't been developed yet. I'd also like to point out that the Yates property can be developed. The zoning it has allows for more houses, and they're not on there yet either. So we're already going to have to deal with those increases. A lot of this stuff, it seems like we're talking about again because we all have been through it a lot of times. And the zoning commission really spent a lot of time on this. Their recommendation is not to approve it. I ask you to do what they recommend and to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I believe there were some questions. We also have the representative here. I can have them on first or questions from staff first. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, could we have the applicant speak, and then I have some questions for staff.
Okay, Ms. Morales. Oh, okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brian Underwood with the Planning Center 2 East Congress here in Tucson, and I'm also joined this morning by the property owner, Mr. Ira Yates, and before I get started, he would like to make a few comments.
Mr. Yates?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Ira Yates. I inherited this property 12 years ago. In 2008, my mother passed away. 60 days before she passed away on Valentine's Day, she received notice from the county that the intersection of McGee and La Cholla were going to be changed, and that would impact her property. During probate, I flew into town to meet with the county representative on the transportation project, and he told me that my access on La Cholla would be taken by the county, and they were taking the adjoining property contiguous to that. That's a commercial property next door. They took that access. I was never contacted by the county. I reached out within a year or so and during the design process and said, what's the story? They said, Mr. Yates, you're not being harmed at all by what's going on here because you have all that frontage on Como. I said, excuse me, I believe the neighborhood believes that's restricted. And they said, well, we don't read it that way. Okay, so that was my situation. I then pursued for about 7 years some kind of compensation legally and through negotiations, and that didn't work out. So finally, in 2016, I filed an application for development using the only 2 access points, albeit them impaired and restricted, to handle my circumstances. Okay, that was to clarify, to gain clarification as to what I needed to do to solve these problems. Well, in order to do that, I had to get a declaratory judgment. I had asked the county to help me on that back when we had discussions, and they didn't have any interest. Unfortunately, and they say, the neighbors are saying I sued them. I asked them for cooperatively, and I have records of this, to help me through this process amicably. Well, that didn't work out, and I got a declaratory judgment against me, not against me, but affirming their position. And I needed that so I could negotiate with the county. Then, as it turns out, without the access to La Cholla, I had to go out and try to figure out how to regain access. Now remember, my access that was the declaratory judgment was for only one single family home. That's it. And I don't want to diverge. So in any case, I filed the application. It wasn't going to be approved. I knew that because it didn't have good, adequate access. I don't want to take too much of your time. So, but we did identify the neighborhood issues, lighting, screening. They were afraid buses and school kids and everybody were going to be on Como. So I literally eliminated all the access on Como to try to appease them. And Brian will speak to all the attributes of my project. I'm just trying to give you the background on why it is today that we're stuck in this situation. If I, in fact, had access directly to La Cholla, you'll see the exhibits there. Before the redesign, we wouldn't be here talking. I would be using the La Cholla access, no access to Como, and there wouldn't be a McGee issue. Now, to sum up, I have, as proactively as I can, I've tried to appease the issues. Buffer zones, shielding, vegetations, those issues. Now, down to traffic. As I understand it, these issues normally would come up after the rezoning, before platting. And you have to do studies and everything, work with the transportation department, work with the neighborhood, identify the problems, and seek resolution to those problems. Because I knew this was an issue, and it is a real issue, and that can be solved, and I expect it to be solved, is I produced the traffic study that identifies, and I hope will help the staff while we work towards resolution of these. If I can get a zoning approval, I am committed to work with the staff, already provided the report, and share my responsibility for the mitigation. I've taken more time than I thought I would. I've got 12 years of history in this. tremendous emotion, and I very much apologize to the neighbors about the process that this has gone through. It has been as frustrating for me as it has been for them. Thank you for your time. If there are any other questions of me, I'm happy to answer them, but I think Brian will speak to the attributes of the project. Thank you.
Brian, if you could also address some of the questions and concerns that were brought up earlier.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Once again, Brian Underwood with the Planning Center here. Just to graphically represent what Mr. Yates was talking about, here were his access points here in 2008. The one here on the left-hand side, but the one in it is the Como Drive access, and then this La Cholla Boulevard access that was originally 330 feet away from the intersection with McGee. And as you can see here in the map on the right-hand side, after the realignment of the intersection into the T-cup configuration, we now, that access sits 35 feet from the intersection there of McGee. So I'll try to be as brief as possible in my presentation so that we can get to the discussion points that were discussed earlier. I did want to touch, though, on sort of the context of the area and where we started with this project nearly 5 years ago now with Ira. When we originally looked at Ira's property, we looked at the surrounding development context and what he has on two sides of him with the Sonoran Terrace apartments on the east and the north sides. Sonoran Terrace has 374 units and it's 14 rack. And then the Como del Sol townhomes along the south boundary, 13 units there, about 8.5 racks. So trying to find some sort of a balance within the county's comprehensive plan land use designation, which is MIU, and calls for a density of at least 5 homes to the acre and no more than 13 homes. So when we started this process back in 2015, that was the range that we were trying to fall within, and also trying to take into account that we had the dense apartments on two sides and 2-story townhomes on the south boundary of us there, with the neighborhood activity center and future commercial planned in the McGee Center. Also influencing our original approach back in 2015 and 16 was surrounding zoning as well, and looking at the zoning of the Sonoran Terrace apartments being CR5, and the transitional zoning for Como del Sol to the south, and the professional offices that exist there today, as well as the intense commercial CB2 zoning in the McGee Center there. And so originally we were proposing a CR5 zoning to match up with Sonoran Terrace. Now we are proposing CR4, as you can see here. But back in 2016, that plan that we originally started with was for 135 2-story attached homes. And so you can see here's the layout. It provides access out to Como, which was, as Mr. Yates mentioned, ultimately determined that it was only for one single residence there. So long story short, for this plan, in 2016, it could not be supported due to the lack of sufficient access, excuse me. And so we put a pin in this for a while, and Ira went to work on securing access to his property, since he could no longer use La Cholla and no longer use his existing access on Como. And so he purchased and built, actually, this exists today, this access point through the McGee Center down to McGee Road. And you'll notice here in this plan that when we came back, nearly 4 years later, 4 years later, As I mentioned, we did reduce our request from CR5 down to CR4, and we really reduced the density. So less than half of what was proposed that first iteration in 2016. Here you can see a total of 63 homes that are proposed, and we also eliminated that access onto Como since IRA has the access to McGee now. And I do want to draw your attention to the west boundary here along Como, because the feedback that we received at that neighborhood meeting that we had in October of last year was that there was still a greater transition needed. We felt that we were creating that by, transitioning from apartments and townhomes to single-family homes for move-up buyers. But the folks in Tucson National were loud and clear that more transition was needed. And so we sharpened our pencils. These 15 backyards facing Como then turned into only 4 side yards facing Como, basically matching up with the 4 homes that you see in line with them there in Tucson National Estates. And so we wanted to reorient that activity, that backyard activity, away from Como Drive, away from Tucson National Estates. And we also wanted to minimize the amount of homes that were backing up to Como. And so in this case, we significantly reduced that, made it side yards instead of backyards. And in addition, we limited homes along Como Drive to single story. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, at their direction, we also limited the next home over in each of these rows to single story as well. So you have the first 2 homes along Como limited to single story. And then in discussions with the Como del Sol homeowners, we've also agreed to limit the entire south boundary, all the homes along the south boundary, to a single story as well, to create really this L shape of a step down in transition in height over to Tucson National and for Como del Sol, so that they can maintain their views. And it's worth noting that on the south side, there's a 10-foot landscape buffer that it was mentioned, I believe, in Ms. McAllister's letter that the Como del Sol homeowners would like to see enhanced landscaping there. We are more than happy to put in that enhanced landscaping, and there's also some additional buffer space as well. It's about 40 or 50 feet east of lot 11 here. So south of lot 10, or 1 through 10, there's about a 40 or 50 foot buffer there for the south boundary. Oh, and I did want to mention as well that the nearest home in Mr. Yates's property would be over 150 feet from the closest home in Tucson National Estates. That would be lot number 13 here, is still over 150 feet, and then as you get further north here, these homes in Tucson National are a little further back, and so that separation is even greater. So one of the other updates since the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's been talked about today, or at least the traffic study has been talked about, and I'll get to that. But another item that we completed was a traffic safety study. And the analysis revealed that there isn't enough sight distance to make safe turn movements at the project driveway on McGee and at McGee and Como. We originally looked at our project driveway on McGee, and then I said, no, we need to address these concerns. We need to look at McGee and Como as well, because we have heard that there is a concern that people exiting this development won't be, and seeking to head eastbound, won't make a left turn, but will instead go right and make a U-turn there at Como. So we wanted to look at the safety and the ability to make a turn there at our driveway and at Como. And what we discovered is that there isn't enough sight distance, And the way to improve that situation right now and to make it safer is to trim or remove the vegetation in the right-of-way. And so if you look here on the right-hand side to the east of the driveway, within 18 feet of the back of sidewalk here along McGee, the vegetation needs to either be removed or trimmed. And what that'll do is it'll provide greater sight distance for people that are seeking to make a turn out of Mr. Yates's project. And so they'll be able to see for a longer distance, and in addition to being able to see further, westbound cars heading through the intersection here at McGee and La Cholla will also be able to see those exiting cars sooner too. So it should make for a safer turn movement there. And then additionally, what we found was that the vegetation needs to be removed from the center median west of Como Drive to provide adequate sight distance for safer turns at Como and McGee. As has been discussed, we have completed a traffic study, usually done after rezoning and at time of plat, but given the concerns on this project, we decided to move this up. The study shows no change in the level of service for McGee Road as a result of the 55 proposed homes, but yet we do recognize that there is a concern out here, a safety concern, a very real one. And so Mr. Yates is committed to participating in any traffic mitigation measures as a consequence of his proposed development. And it's been discussed today, a traffic signal, if that is what the County Transportation Department feels is necessary, then Mr. Yates will certainly contribute to that signal. And I just want to point out that what I've heard here is that something needs to happen for the traffic. A solution needs to be made. And frankly, development is sort of the way to get to that solution. Nothing has happened out here. There's been no consideration of improving safety in this area. But if Mr. Yates's project is approved, that gets the ball rolling on that. And any other future development, the commercial and McGee Center, will only add to that problem being addressed, if you will. So in summary, Mr. Yates's project is consistent with the Pima County Comprehensive Plan density criteria. It's actually on the far low extreme of the required density per the comprehensive plan. The 5 rack, we're at 5.3, and that's even after taking out some open space to reduce the acreage of the property for that density calculation. It does create an effective transition between high and low density housing, between the apartments, Como del Sol townhomes, commercial and office in McGee Center, and the single family homes in Tucson National Estates on the west side of Como. And the homes that we're proposing, I did mention no two stories along the south boundary or for the first 2 rows along Como. These are going to be good-sized homes, 2-car garages, private backyards, 3 to 4 bedrooms, meant for move-up and second move-up buyers who want to live in a desirable area of Tucson in a gated community. And it's as mentioned, it's an infill project that doesn't need an extension of services. It already has water, sewer, electric, and so on. And so. With that, I would ask your consideration of this project, and I will, if you'd like, I can address some of these concerns that were mentioned as well, Mr. Chairman.
Please, if you could.
So as I mentioned, safety seems to be the common thread here. So I'll reiterate again, we are more than happy to contribute to any kind of mitigation measures that are needed. We want to have ongoing conversations. We want this to be an iterative process with the county, with surrounding neighbors, and we want to, ultimately get to yes, but get to a safer situation out there. And I would like to clear up a couple points that were made about a single access point and needing more than one. We do have the option of sprinklering the homes, which would require only one single access point if we were to do that. And we do have secondary access options that we are looking at with Sonoran Terrace Apartments as well. Is there any other point that you'd like me to touch on?
Let me ask that of the board. Supervisor Miller, I believe you may have had some issues you wanted to address.
Mr. Chairman, I only have one question for the staff.
All right, anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, I know that on the there was a condition that was previously on the last board meeting that there was a transportation condition that has since been removed, the access to La Cholla for emergency response vehicles. And I'd like to know, ask Mr. Poirier why that was removed.
Mr. Poirier.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, it was removed as a request of the applicant that simply wanted to landscape that access point to La Cholla. From a staff standpoint, in light of a subdivision plat and a rezoning, that La Cholla access point would not meet any required setback. So it's not ideal in light of, again, of an increase that we're seeing here for that La Cholla access point. The La Cholla access point would be fully allowed under the property's current condition. It's serving one home. In fact, if they were to further split the property and not trigger a subdivision plat, so anywhere up to 4 homes, then that driveway simply would be allowed as well. But as they are seeking a rezoning and triggering a subdivision plat, we then have standards that apply, and then that driveway is deficient only because they're seeking to increase their density.
Supervisor Miller?
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Any other questions? No, I don't believe they do.
Okay. With that, with the information about the Como Road being restricted at the point when the home was originally purchased, the property was originally purchased by the Yates family, it was restricted to one home per the 12.5 acres, the access out onto Como. With the change in the alignment of McGee, with the high-speed traffic that comes through there, and the lack of a second egress onto this property, I am going to move to close the public hearing and move to deny this rezoning as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and against the staff recommendation for approval subject to standard and special conditions, modified standard and special standard conditions.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and deny item number 27. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman and staff, again, Chris, Mr. Poirier, this does require a supermajority.
To pass.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bronson, that's correct. Supermajority has been triggered.
And it would appear at this point, with the motion and the seconder of the motion, that will not be met. I think it's unfortunate. I think that This is a nice piece of property, and Mr. Yates has worked very hard to deal with the difficulties that I think, frankly, Pima County caused by taking the right-of-way. And I also think it's unfortunate because this proposal, or this rezoning, fits with the comprehensive plan that we worked extensively on, and was one of the, this was one of the areas indicated as a growth area as we developed the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. And I think this is just an unfortunate set of circumstances that everybody bears responsibility for, including Pima County.
Any further discussion? All right.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Supervisor Bronson?
Reluctantly, I vote yes.
Supervisor Christy?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
Yeah, Supervisor Christie, a yes vote is for denial, and you made the
I beg your
second.
pardon.
Right.
I need
Yes.
to change my vote. Thank you. It's yes. Thank you.
Yes, and my vote is a yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Yes, for denial, okay. Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Villegas?
Yes.
Chairman Valadez?
No. By your vote of 4 to 1, the motion to deny passes.
4 to 1, Mr. Chairman?
4 to 1.
Oh, thank you.
Lunch is here.
What's that?
Lunch is here.
I can't hear.
Lunch is here.
Okay. All right. We've been on here a little while. We're going to go ahead and take a 30-minute recess, and we will return to the sound of the gavel.
Okay.
Okay.
You can hear me
Thank you.
okay?
Yep.
Okay.
No. What's the buzz? Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, before you is a request for rezoning from what is currently SR to CB2 that essentially would allow for a self-storage operation in an area that has kind of become an unofficial self-storage cluster as part of town at Colburn, Valencia. Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval, as has staff, and that concludes the staff report.
If there are any questions, we have Mr. Taylor actually on the phone with us.
I can't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
I said if there are any...
No.
Taylor? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. If there are any
Yes,
questions, Mr. Taylor is on the phone with us.
No questions?
If there are no questions, what's the will of the board? Supervisor Christy?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I'd like to close public hearing and move to approve P20RZ00005 Taylor et al. South Colb rezoning and approve it subject to standard and special conditions and staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve item number 8, subject to standard and special conditions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 29. These are 3 separate items that have to have 3 separate motions and 3 separate votes.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we have the applicant on the line, but if there's no one to speak against these issues, I don't need a staff report, and I'm prepared to make some motions.
Please proceed.
All right, on item 29A, CO999-43 Riv Road Associates LLC River Road rezoning, I move denial of closure as recommended by staff.
Second.
Motion is to close the public hearing and as staff recommends, deny the closure of the rezoning on item A of 29. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
On item B, CO999-43 River Road Associates LLC, River Road rezoning and time extension, I move to close public hearing and approve 2 consecutive 5-year time extensions subject to original and modified standards and special conditions as recommended by staff.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second for item 29B to close the public hearing and approve 2 consecutive 5-year extensions subject to original and modified special standard and special conditions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item C.
Item C, hearing modification, substantial change of rezoning conditions for CO9 99-43 River Road Associates LLC, River Road rezoning. I move to approve the modification, substantial change of rezoning condition number 11, subject to original and modified standard and special conditions, and approval of the modification, substantial change of rezoning condition number 11, subject to original and modified and special conditions as recommended by staff and the commissioners.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and approve item number 29C, approval of the modification of rezoning condition 11, subject to original and modified standard and special conditions. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 30.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no one in the audience that wishes to address us in opposition, I move to close public hearing for P18RZ00003, Hildreth Eugene Living Trust, West Michigan Street rezoning, to recommend closure as staff has recommended.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and to approve item number 30, which is recommended by staff for closure. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Now we have 31A and B, 32, 33, and 34 under transportation.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no one, these are hearings, if there's no one in the audience that wishes to address us, I move to close the public hearing, approve items 31 and resolution 2020-79, and item 31B, the contract, as well as 32 and ordinance number 2020-30 and 33, ordinance number 2020-31 and 34, ordinance number 2020-32.
Second.
Motion and second to approve those items as stated by Supervisor Bronson and close the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to the addendum agenda, Board of Supervisors, sitting as other boards, Flood Control District Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item. It's a contract with the U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Geological Survey.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 2 on the addendum agenda under Flood Control District Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Sitting as Board of Supervisors, Board of Supervisors National Week of Mourning. Supervisor Bronson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I placed this on the board's agenda. This is National Week of Mourning for COVID victims, COVID-19 victims, and many jurisdictions have also put forth a similar resolution. So it is my honor to move resolution number 2020-80, honoring those COVID-19 victims and establishing a National Week of Mourning.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 3 and resolution number 2020-80. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Clerk of the Board, item 4, 5, and 6.
Move those items.
Second. Motion before us is the approval of item 4, 5, and 6 under Clerk of the Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Now, item number 7, Human Resources.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item number 7. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Contract and awards, community and workforce development, 8, 9, and 10.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move those items.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to
Second.
approve item 8, 9, and 10. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving to county attorney, item number 11.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 11. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no objection, items 12 through 28, if nobody wishes to pull any of those, I'll move those in its entirety. So items 12 through 28, if nobody wishes to vote on one of those separately.
Second, is there an objection? Hearing none, all those in favor of the remainder of the addendum agenda, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. This board having no further business before it, this board stands adjourned.